The night was thick with shadows, the kind that seemed to breathe with every creak of the old house. William Hayes sat alone in his worn leather chair, the fire before him burning low, its flames dancing like whispers of secrets too heavy to tell. His wrinkled hands rested on the carved armrests, veins standing out like rivers carved by time. It had been decades since he built this house with his own two hands. Every nail, every brick, every wooden beam carried his sweat, his sacrifice, and his love for the family he raised inside these walls. To him, this home was more than shelter. It was a fortress of memories, of laughter, of love, of storms endured together. But now, at 74, William realized something bitter. The walls remembered more than his children did. The silence of the night was broken by a sharp slam, the front door banging open. Heavy footsteps echoed down the hall. His son. "Dad," came the sharp voice of Andrew, the eldest. His tone carried no warmth, no son's affection. Instead, it was laced with frustration and urgency. "We need to talk. Now." Behind him, William heard the soft patter of someone else's feet. Beatrice, his daughter, younger, more tender, but lately distant. She entered the room with hesitation, her eyes darting nervously between her father and her brother. "What is it this time?" William asked, his voice calm but firm, though his heart already knew. Andrew wasted no time. "The will. We need to finalize things. You're not getting younger, Dad. You can't keep dragging this out." The fire crackled. William's eyes, sharp despite age, lifted to meet his son's. "Dragging what out?" he asked quietly. "The estate, the land, the money." Andrew shot back. "It has to be settled. We've all been patient, but it's time you signed it over. To me." Beatrice flinched at his bluntness, but said nothing. William studied his son, tall, broad-shouldered, successful in the world's eyes, but hollow in ways he couldn't fix. He remembered when Andrew was a boy, climbing trees, scraping his knees, running to him for comfort. Somewhere along the way, ambition had devoured innocence. "Why to you?" William finally asked, leaning back at his chair. Andrew stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Because I'm the one who can handle it. Beatrice isn't cut out for it. The others don't care. You know it's the only logical choice." Beatrice's eyes filled with tears, but she remained silent. William felt the weight of his years, pressing heavier than ever. He had given them everything. Food on the table when money was scarce, clothes patched and repatched until they could afford new ones, endless nights of labor so they could sleep peacefully. And now, his own blood stood before him, demanding the very soul of what he had built. "Andrew," William said slowly, his voice like steel wrapped in velvet. "What you're asking isn't love. It's greed." Andrew's jaw tightened. "No, Dad. It's reality. And if you don't face it, things will get ugly." The words sliced through the room. Beatrice gasped. But William didn't flinch. He leaned forward, the firelight casting deep shadows across his weathered face. "Ugly? Son, you don't know what ugly is. I've seen hunger. I've seen loss. I've buried more than you can imagine. And still, I never once turned on my family." For a moment, silence reigned. The crackle of the fire was the only sound. Beatrice whispered, her voice trembling. "Andrew, please don't do this." But Andrew ignored her. He pulled a folder from his coat, papers, neatly clipped, waiting for a signature. He placed them on the table with a thud. "Sign it, Dad. Tonight." William's eyes flickered to the papers, then back to his son. He felt something stir inside him. Not weakness, not fear, but the old fire, the unyielding spirit that had carried him through wars within and without. He rose slowly from his chair, every movement deliberate, his frame tall despite the years. His voice, though calm, carried the weight of thunder. "No." The word echoed, final, unbreakable. Beatrice's tears spilled over. Andrew's face hardened, but behind his eyes, for the first time, there was a flicker of doubt. William turned his gaze to both of them. "I built this life not for signatures or bank accounts, but for love, for legacy, for the strength of family. If that means nothing to you, then perhaps I failed as a father. But hear me well, Andrew. I will not hand over my soul on paper." The fire roared as if in agreement. Andrew stood frozen, fists clenched, papers untouched. Beatrice sobbed softly into her hands. And William Hayes, the man who had raised them, who had given his all, stood tall in the silence, not broken, not afraid, but unyielding. For in that moment he knew, sometimes a father's silence speaks louder than all the words in the world. Andrew's jaw worked in frustration as he gathered the unsigned papers. He had expected resistance, but not this, not the sheer force of his father's refusal. For a moment, the confidence that usually carried him in business meetings faltered. He was standing not before an old man, but before the iron will of William Hayes, the man who had raised him. "You don't understand, Dad," Andrew said finally, his tone colder now. "This isn't just about family. It's about securing the future. If you don't take action, this estate could slip away. Do you want everything you worked for to scatter into nothing?" William watched him, the firelight reflecting in his eyes. "The future doesn't come from signatures. It comes from how you live, Andrew, from the choices you make. And right now, you're choosing power over love. That's not a future, it's a curse." Beatrice shifted uncomfortably. She had always been the gentler one, the one who tried to keep peace when tempers flared. But tonight, peace was slipping further away with every word exchanged. "Andrew," she began softly, her voice breaking, "why are you pushing so hard? We're not starving. We're not losing the house. Dad's still here. Why can't that be enough?" Her brother turned on her, his eyes sharp. "Because you don't understand how the world works, B. Dreams and memories don't pay bills. Sentiment doesn't secure assets. If Dad won't see reason, then someone has to." William took a step forward, the weight of his presence filling the room. "And what exactly do you think I built this for, Andrew? Just money in a bank? A name on a deed? No. I built it so you would know the value of sacrifice, of love, of standing tall even when the world tries to break you. And now you want to erase all of that with a signature." The air grew heavy, the kind that makes breathing harder. Beatrice, tears streaming down her face, whispered, "Dad, I don't want to lose you. I don't care about the land or the money. I just don't want us to break apart." Her words trembled in the silence, but Andrew barely flinched. He had come too far. His pride wouldn't let him step back. "You think this is about greed," Andrew said, staring hard at his father. "But it's about control. If you don't decide now, one day the lawyers will. Do you want strangers dividing this place? Do you want outsiders tearing apart your legacy?" William's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. It was sorrow mixed with defiance. "My legacy isn't this land, Andrew. It isn't the money. My legacy is how I lived, how I loved, and what I taught you. If you can't see that, then you've already let outsiders tear it apart." The words landed heavy, each syllable like a stone thrown into Andrew's chest. For the first time, his voice wavered. "Dad, you can't be serious. You'd rather let it all go than trust me with it?" William's gaze didn't waver. "Trust isn't given because of blood, Andrew. Trust is earned through honor. And tonight, you've shown me nothing but hunger for power." Andrew's face darkened, but beneath the anger was something else. Hurt, perhaps, or fear. Beatrice reached for his arm, but he shook her off, pacing like a caged animal. "You'll regret this," Andrew muttered, his voice low but sharp. "One day, you'll see what happens when you cling to pride instead of reason." William straightened, his voice steady as a rock. "And one day, you'll see what happens when a man gives away everything for greed. That lesson is coming, Andrew, and when it does, you'll remember this night." Beatrice's sobs filled the silence, raw and painful. Andrew stormed out, the door slamming so hard the house trembled. The echoes of his footsteps faded into the night, leaving only the crackle of the fire and Beatrice's weeping. William placed a hand gently on her shoulder. His voice softened, carrying both sorrow and strength. "Don't cry, Bea. Let him go. Some lessons can't be taught with words. They have to be lived." She looked up at him, eyes glistening. "But what if he never comes back, Dad?" William's gaze turned to the fire, the flames reflecting in his weary eyes. "Then he'll have chosen his path, and I'll have chosen mine. But the truth has a way of finding us, child, even when we run from it." The room grew quiet again, But it wasn't the silence of defeat. It was the silence of a storm gathering, unseen, inevitable, and powerful. William Hayes, the man who had given his life to his children, knew the battle wasn't over. But he also knew something Andrew had yet to learn. Silence, when chosen wisely, could be the sharpest weapon of all. The days that followed were heavy with tension. Andrew stopped visiting. Calls went unanswered, messages left without reply. Beatrice came often, her presence a fragile comfort in the echoing halls of the Hayes estate. But even she seemed unsure how to bridge the widening chasm between father and brother. William, however, remained steady. He went about his days as he always had, tending the garden, polishing the old rifle mounted on the wall, feeding the sparrows that gathered at the porch each morning. To outsiders, it might have looked like the quiet routines of an aging man, but to William, it was more than that. It was preparation, because he knew Andrew would return. And when he did, William was ready. It was a cold evening when the inevitable knock came. 3 sharp raps on the heavy oak door. Beatrice was in the kitchen, and she rushed to open it, her heart torn between relief and dread. Andrew stood there, his suit sharp, his expression harder than stone. He didn't wait for an invitation. He strode in, his presence filling the room with restless energy. "Dad," he said, his voice clipped. "We need to talk. One last time." William looked up from his chair, calm as ever. "Then talk." Andrew pulled out another folder, thicker than the first. Contracts, valuations, legal jargon spilling out in black ink. "I've spoken to the lawyers. This is the final draft. If you don't sign it, they'll intervene when you're gone. Do you want strangers dictating your legacy?" Beatrice's eyes darted to her father, fear in them. But William simply leaned back, his face unreadable. "Legacy," he repeated slowly. "You speak of it as if it's a deed or a dollar. But legacy, Andrew, is not written on paper. It is carved in hearts." Andrew's frustration boiled over. His voice rose. "Stop with the riddles, Dad. You're gambling everything away. Don't you see? You're making a mistake you can't undo." For the first time, William stood. The room seemed to shift as he rose, towering despite his age, his presence commanding. His voice cut through the air like a blade. "No, Andrew. The mistake was thinking love could be bought. The mistake was raising a son who measures his worth in signatures." Beatrice sobbed quietly, covering her face. Andrew's hand shook, though he tried to hide it. "If you won't do this for me, then do it for Beatrice. Do it for the family." William's eyes narrowed. "Family." He turned to Beatrice, his tone softening. "Family is loyalty, kindness, sacrifice. Family is a daughter who still stands beside her father when the world turns cold. Not a son who demands and threatens in the name of blood." Andrew flinched. His father's words struck deeper than he wanted to admit. But pride held him prisoner. He shoved the papers forward, his voice cracking with desperation. "Sign it, Dad, or everything you built will be wasted." William paused. The fire crackled. Beatrice held her breath. Then, slowly, deliberately, William reached out, not for a pen, but for the folder. He opened it, scanning the pages, with a steady gaze. Andrew leaned forward, thinking he had finally won. But then William did something Andrew never expected. He closed the folder, set it on the table, and without a word, pushed it back across. And he walked away. The silence was deafening. Andrew stared at the folder as if it were a serpent. Beatrice wiped her tears, her voice trembling. "Dad, what are you going to do?" William turned at the doorway, his voice calm but resolute. "Nothing, because some battles are not won with ink. They are won with silence. Let Andrew learn what silence means." Weeks passed. William never signed. He never spoke of it again. He carried on with his days, unbothered, unbroken. And then, one morning, the call came. Andrew's voice strained, almost broken. "Dad, the deal fell through. The lawyers, they said without your consent, everything stands as it is. I lost the investors. I don't know what to do." For a moment, William said nothing. The silence stretched across the line like a bridge Andrew could not cross. Finally, William's voice came, steady as stone. "Now you understand, son. Silence speaks louder than greed. You wanted control, and you lost it because you never listened. Legacy cannot be stolen. It can only be lived. Andrew's breath hitched. There were no words left. Only the weight of realization crashing down. That night, as Beatrice sat beside him by the fire, she whispered, "Dad, do you think Andrew will ever change?" William looked into the flames, their glow reflecting in his weary but unbroken eyes. Change comes when pride is shattered. Until then, silence will be my answer. And with that, William Hayes leaned back in his chair, the firelight bathing him in warmth. Not defeated, not bitter, but resolute. For he knew the truth. Sometimes the greatest lesson a father leaves behind is not in what he says, but in what he refuses to surrender. A legacy not of wealth, but of strength. Not of signatures, but of silence.